今天您将收看的是
沃纳·赫尔佐格以新德国电影运动闻名世界。从15岁写出第一个剧本开始，赫尔佐格从未停止过电影创作，迄今执导了71部影片。
大家好，观众朋友们，您现在看到的是今晚我们看电影。德国电影大师沃纳·赫尔佐格是德国新浪潮电影的最具传奇的导演之一。他用自己独特的镜头语言和表现方式，不断开拓着电影艺术的新边界。近日，赫尔佐格电影回顾展在上海举行，让我们就走进这位电影大师。
德国电影大师沃纳·赫尔佐格作品回顾展近日在沪上举行。本次影展由上海艺术电影联盟推出，共放映赫尔佐格的8部经典影片，包括曾经荣获戛纳电影节最佳导演奖的《陆上行舟》，关于五月风暴预言式的作品《侏儒也是从小长大的》，以及克劳斯金斯基的演技代表作《阿基尔：上帝的愤怒》等等。这些经典作品让上海观众再次领略赫尔佐格非凡的艺术视野。
I think it's a very good moment to show my films because I do believe that there's a huge change in very fundamental things. Films are being made differently with digital effects. We have possibilities of streaming films, and we do not necessarily have to show them in theaters. So there's a great transition, and in this time of transition, it's very fine that I'm bringing films here with subtitles in Mandarin, because some of my really important films are there. But my problem is that I have made about 70. I wish I could show one day all of them, but of course it has to be restricted, and I cannot be like a flood coming to your country, to China.
沃纳·赫尔佐格以新德国电影运动闻名世界。从15岁写出第一个剧本开始，赫尔佐格从未停止过电影创作，迄今执导了71部影片。1970年代以后，《帕斯卡豪泽之谜》《陆上行舟》等影片陆续为赫尔佐格赢得了国际声誉。电影《陆上行舟》讲述了痴迷歌剧的菲兹杰拉德为了想要在秘鲁小镇修建歌剧院而前往乌圭里亚林区展开了一场冒险之旅。影片拍摄历时4年，阻力重重，最惊人的时刻无疑是让人目瞪口呆的陆上行舟。赫尔佐格找到了一条340吨重的汽船，将它拉动了1600多米，让观众再次相信自己的眼睛。赫尔佐格如实说，做这件事不是为了真实，而是为了把电影变成一个狂热之梦。
Well, it is a conflict mostly of former decades, or let's say a conflict 100 years ago, when the exploitation of the white man, of the indigenous population took place. I mean, it's really in the classic sense exploitation of labor force. But of course it's also a film about fever dreams in the jungle, dream of bringing great culture into the jungle, opera, Italian opera. So it's a film that has lots of fantasies, and you see, since the ship was so heavy, and as an audience you see how it's being moved over the mountain, when you leave the theater you feel like, let's say, 30 pounds lighter, and that's something very nice to see with audiences. Moving a ship over a mountain, over 300 tons heavy, that's a monster, and it doesn't have precedence in technical history, so we could not learn from anyone. But of course we attracted somehow, as if a bad spell was on us. We attracted real disasters. We had, for example, 2 small plane crashes. Small planes went down. It was not related to the shooting of the film, but bringing people for logistics in. And we ran into a border war between Peru and Ecuador where we wanted to do it. So my camp was destroyed, and I had to move 2,000 kilometers somewhere else, and just on and on. And then I shot the film, and the leading actor became so ill that we had to fly him out to the United States, and his doctors would not allow him to return. There were no real special effects like the digital effects. It was before that. But I always wanted to have an audience back in a very fundamental position where you can trust your eyes again. We know that people went into a panic and they fled the theater because they thought the train was running into them. So that was a time where people really trusted in the images. And I want you, the audience, trusting your eyes again.
There! You see that? There are times when a peasant's brain is good for something. You're not a peasant! You're the smartest bastard on God's earth! But we forgot something! What? Caruso! Enrico Caruso!
Not only did he succeed in building an opera house in the jungle, he failed before having a train built across the mountains to the Pacific. But I think it's exuberance of life, joy of bringing something special to people, music, opera. And if we came back 10 years later, he still would try, I guess. So it's a human spirit that is somehow very encouraging. He gives us courage to our dreams.
《作为当时导演金字塔顶端的人物之一，赫尔佐格热衷于将历史事件寓言化，凸显人性的本质。他的影片大多以狂热、孤独的狂想者为主人公，强调人力与天意的对抗。1972年，赫尔佐格执导的影片《阿基尔：上帝的愤怒》是其中最具代表性的作品之一。通过16世纪一支西班牙探险队在亚马逊流域寻找黄金的故事，展现人类在贪婪和欲望驱使下的自我毁灭。与赫尔佐格多次合作的黄金搭档、著名影星克劳斯金斯基在片中展现出精湛演技，创造出一个让人毛骨悚然的暴君形象。
Aguirre, that was 10 years earlier. I was a very young man when I made this. Of course, there's real madness. Spanish conquistadores going to the Amazon and to the jungle and trying to find the gold of El Dorado. And of course, they fail and they disappear at the end without trace. It is maybe a distant echo in this case of the catastrophe of Germany in the Second World War. It could be, but I would be cautious to make a direct link. Kinski was really very special. He had a presence and a dynamic and an authority on screen that you do not see very often. However, we made only 5 films together, which was quite enough because he was very, very difficult, the most difficult, crazy actor you could ever find. But of course, he's only in 5 of my films, and he made many other films outside of my films, but he's remembered for my films. Well, you have quite a few films where nature is quite important. In the jungle, it's like the fever dreams going on there. It's not like in many films or like in commercials where landscape is a scenic backdrop. In my films, landscapes and nature always have a human quality, the quality of madness, the quality of dreams, the quality of solitude. And they become almost like separate additional characters.
侏儒也是从小长大的，是赫尔佐格在1970年拍摄的一部艺高人胆大之作。 影片邀请到一群毫无表演经验的侏儒来主演，通过一群小镇侏儒荒诞离奇的故事，寓言式地批判了1968年5月风暴时的民众心态。影片拍摄难度极大，很多场面在几乎不可能的情况下完成，曾被奉为影史上最佳电影之一。
I think it's some sort of a metaphor that we have become small, everybody, and all the consumer goods go out of proportions, meaning a chair all of a sudden becomes like a monster, or things that you of daily use, the consuming things we are using grow in size over us. So that was probably one of the things that were leading, and of course it's a very dark film. There's a lot of anarchy in it. But I've done unusual things. For example, I've done a film where all the actors played under hypnosis. I would hypnotize them, and they were so deep under hypnosis that they could open their eyes without waking up. And it's a very strange, very stylized film. So I've done unusual things, unusual experiments that others have not done. With a film with all the midgets, you do not see after 2 days, you do not see that they're so tiny. It's very strange. We correct, and I saw them as human beings, and we were very friendly with each other. We laughed a lot and had friendship years afterwards still. So now I've never had any problems, neither with the dwarfs nor with any of the actors with whom I had worked in my life.
接下来您将收看的是，
在故事片领域建树丰盈的赫尔佐格，亦热衷于纪录片的创作。如今年过70的他，也鼓励年轻人冲破现实，大胆创作，成为电影艺术的梦想家。在故事片领域建树丰盈的赫尔佐格，亦热衷于纪录片的创作。他摒弃对电影种类的明确划分，挣脱已有创作形式的束缚，模糊了剧情片与纪录片、故事片与电视、理智与疯狂之间的分割线。赫尔佐格用自己独特的电影语言，带领观众进入狂喜的真实。
I would be careful to make such clear categories because the borderline between feature films and documentaries is not so clear for me. I have stylized documentaries. I have invented certain parts. I have commented in a wild way sometimes. I have done casting for them, a little bit like for feature films. So many elements that you would only find in feature films. And I have somehow taken documentaries somewhere where they had not been before. I think pretty much all the films, documentaries I have made, I could recommend, but there are some quite early one, Land of Silence and Darkness, about people who are blind and deaf at the same time, or a film about a ski jumper, about an athlete who flies, the great ecstasy of the sculpture Steiner. Or films like Into the Inferno, and maybe something that I have done recently, which really has excited the very young ones who grew up with their cell phones and their smartphones. It's called Lo and Behold, Reveries of the Connected World. It's a film about the internet, the human impact of the internet. And that has really fascinated the very young ones. A film I made in the Antarctic, Encounters at the End of the World. It's not an idea, it was a bet. A very talented young man, Errol Morris, who is now one of the great filmmakers, he had left a lot of unfinished things. And he said, I want to make a film. And I said, yeah, start tomorrow. You can start it without money, and I want to see this finished. And when I see this in a theater, I'm going to eat the shoes that I'm wearing right now. So I actually ate my shoes. It should never have been published. I said, if somebody is filming this, it should stay for the family album, but it was published. But it has a certain charm. And I think you have to do things like eating your shoe if you are sticking to your bet, to your challenge.
Is it getting better or getting worse?
Better.
Tongue, food.
That's a lot of money.
赫尔佐格的电影具有强烈的个人风格，而且都在很少的预算下完成。早年19岁的赫尔佐格用偷来的35毫米摄影机拍摄完成了自己的第一部短片。如今年过70的他，也鼓励年轻人冲破现实，大胆创作，成为电影艺术的梦想家。
I think the technology is not the decisive thing. It doesn't matter whether I shoot a film digitally or on celluloid. It hasn't made films better that we are shooting digitally. It's always, do you have a good story or not? Are the actors great? Is there something deeply fascinating about this? It's simply that young filmmakers can make their films outside and without the industry. You do not have to wait for millions of dollars from the film industry to invite you to do something. You can make a long, wonderful long feature film for almost no money. Today, there are even feature films that are shown in theaters which were made on cell phones. While I'm sitting here, I'm exploring 2 or 3 new projects, so I'm in the middle of working. In fact, I have never stopped, and today my output is bigger than in earlier years because I can make sometimes 2-3 films per year. Because with a digital filming, you can film, it goes faster, you can edit much faster digitally. So it's a good time for me, and I have so many films coming at me, so many ideas that I never can catch up with it. There's something that has to do with our collective dreams and with my visions, but at the same time, you have to understand when you make films professionally, as I do, you have to be very disciplined. It sounds like a contradiction, but I'm somebody who does not go over budget. Sometimes I stay under budget even. Nobody manages to do that. So there are 2 sides. One is fantasy and imagination and dreams and all these visions, and on the other side, professional, disciplined work. It's that I simply want to encourage young filmmakers. So many of them come and try to learn from me, and I have become a point of orientation. And I tell them, stick to your own dreams, stick to your own culture. Don't try to imitate Hollywood. You just make Chinese films. I make films coming from the spirit and the culture of my own country. Take initiative. Do not wait and hope for the big money coming at you. You have to do it on your own, even if you shoot the film on your cell phone. And you have to be courageous. You have to have a vision and stick to your own culture. Be proud of your own culture. And then you will make a fine film.
赫尔佐格的影片早已超越了电影艺术记录和再现的传统方式，带给观众更深层次的思考。好，感谢各位收看今天的节目，让我们下一次再见。
明天您将收看的是
获得过柏林电影节与东京电影节的最高奖项，土耳其名导塞米卡普拉诺格鲁为第21届上海国际电影节担当评委。